This week, two surveys dropped, strategically timed for the start of the official campaign period for national elective offices. We get what the surveys say. The numbers are clear enough. But what do they mean? What are voters thinking? Hi, I'm John Nery, and you are in the Public Square. Let's start with the latest Pulse Asia survey, which was conducted from January 18 to 25, and whose findings were released on February 10. Joining us today is the president of Pulse Asia, the eminent political scientist, Dr. Ronald Holmes, professor at De La Salle University. Welcome, Dr. Holmes, and thank you for joining us in the Public Square.
Well, thanks, John. Thanks for the invitation.
Dr. Holmes, the 14 candidates you identified in your January survey as having a statistical chance of winning a Senate seat, if the elections were held at the time of the survey, of the 14, 10 are administration candidates. I also took a look at your previous midterm election survey, also at around the same time, January 2019. 10 of the 15 with a statistical chance were also identified with the administration. Is this a usual pattern? Majority are with the administration coalition during midterm elections?
Well, it can be said as usual, except for one election that we had, the midterm election, I think in 2007. The primary reason for this is when the administration assembles its slate, it makes sure that the ones that are in the slate are people who will have a higher chance of making it.
Who are already popular,
In that sense, it's some sort of they're trying to assure that they do not in any way lose the majority or the alliance in the Senate, the majority alliance in the Senate. So I think that's something that you can expect from any administration. You remember that even in 2013, under the late President Pinoy, it was an assembly of several parties, no?
That's right.
That as a political scientist, I wrote something about it. I said, where's the party? Because, you had the nationalistas, you had the liberals, and that's what administrations do. They try to make sure that their slate would be stronger than the slate of other political groups.
Yes. But in terms of presidential election years, when a president is trying to consolidate his power by handing power over to a successor, the numbers look a little different. I mean, first of all, when Pinoy ran, in the 2016 elections, Pinoy tried to have as many from the Liberal Party and his coalition win, but it was only a handful that won. It's not 10 out of the 12 and so on. What is the dynamic in a presidential election? How does it affect a presidential election year? How does it affect the senators running for the Senate from the dynamic in a midterm election?
Well, in a simultaneous election where you have the presidential and the senatorial elections, basically the focus of the presidential candidate would be in terms of really ensuring significant support across the board, including their senatorial slate. However, you do have a number of presidential candidates, and they scamper for their own senatorial slate. And the tendency that we've seen in the past is that a number are actually put in as guest candidates, the ones that are doing strongly in pre-election surveys. So it's secondary to the presidential candidate. In that sense, the senators are left to their own in terms of generating support. Of course, senatorial candidates would want to go with the stronger president, with stronger presidential candidate. But then again, there are firmer alliances in a presidential election. They try to get those that are more aligned with their group, not necessarily ideology. So it's more dispersed with regard to the senatorial race.
Looking at the history, at least of the elections during the 21st century, I noticed that, for instance, frontrunners like Grace Poe in 2019 or now, Erwin Tulfo in 2025, are polling at 60, 70%. I think Grace po in 2019 even had a 75% rate. But in 2019, what happened was that Grace po ended at second to Cynthia Villar, and she got 46% of the vote. Can you help us understand what's happening here? Through the monthly surveys, they're doing quite well. I mean, like above majority, but they end up a little below majority. And would this also happen to Erwin Tulfo?
Well, one of the things that we should consider really would be turnout, because the pre-election surveys, we do have questions there that try to measure turnout. But the statement, self-proclaimed turnout is high. I mean, we're getting figures of about 95%.
Okay.
When the actual turnout is what, 78, 80%. And you see this, and there's the reason why there's a decline in terms of, let's say, for example, the share of the total votes of the one who lands number one.
Okay.
In 2019, John, if I'm not mistaken, was it Cynthia Villar?
That's
got
right.
What, close to 54%?
That's right.
So while the candidate in pre-election surveys will get, let's say, a high of 70, 75, Erwin Tulfo is 62 right now, you can expect that this will also decline. Whoever wins the senatorial race might get by about majority of the votes, 53%. So it's probably the turnout. And we do have that in the survey when we ask people whether they will change their mind, whether they will continue to vote, or whether they will still have 12 candidates. You'll find out that a large proportion, about 1 out of 3 of those who have 12 names right now, are saying that there's a possibility that they will change the names, or there's a possibility that they will even reduce the number of names that they would eventually indicate on the ballot.
We usually describe election surveys as like snapshots in time. This is what the electorate is thinking. I get the sense that for 2025, the top half seems to be of the picture seems to be quite clear, but the lower half of this snapshot is a little blurry because there's so many competing for the available seats. Is that an accurate metaphor for your latest survey?
Maybe the top quarter seem to be a bit more stable, and then below them you do have changes in terms of ranking, John. For example, in this survey, if you compare it to the November survey, you have a change in terms of ranking. Bongo is now tied from second to third. But the main reason for that is not because of an increase in his voting support, actually it declined marginally.
Okay.
It's because of the decline in the voting support of Tito Soto that significantly declined by 9 percentage points.
I see.
Another person that also saw a reduction in statistically significant reduction was Ben Tulfo. The only one that we saw increase in the survey in terms of preference was Amy Marcos, by almost 6 points. So, a slight decline in terms of one's voting support might lead towards a closer, a tighter race among those in the bottom half or even at the top. If you have an incremental decline in your support, you might end up to be number 2 or number 3. We don't know exactly what will happen because there are many other things that will transpire in the next few months leading to the May election.
But you did say earlier that maybe the top quarter, so let's say the first 3, the picture is clear. So that would be Erwin Tulfo, Bongo, and Tito Soto. Does that mean that their numbers are so high that even if they fall, they would still end up winning?
At this point, yes. At this point, if we compare to November, if you get 2 of those snapshots, if the elections were held at the time that we conducted the survey, then they would definitely get in. But whether they can sustain the level of support that they have right now would really depend on what they do, what they fail to do, and what the other candidates are able to accomplish within the period of the campaign.
Pulse Asia is known for prefacing its survey findings with a list of what they perceive to be the pertinent events or facts that may have shaped public opinion. I'd like to ask you, what do you think explains Tito Sotto's drop and Amy Marcos's mini surge?
It's hard to explain the drop on the part of Tito Soto. It might be essentially that he may not have been as much present, at least in terms of reportage. Although the latest that we saw, what came at the time after we conducted the survey, when they had a statement against the budget, concern about the budget. In the case of Amy Marcos, it's clear because in our survey we did ask for recall of advertisements, and one of the people who had a high recall in terms of advertisements would be Amy Marcos as top of mind. And this is supported by the PCIJ study that shows that Amy and Camille Villar were the top spenders. No? So it seems that that's paying off literally for Amy Marcos in terms of the increase that she saw from survey to survey.
And maybe also for Camille Villar.
Not so much. In her case, I think the increase is just about 2 points.
So within the...
But that allows her to be in contention, an increase of her rank. She was, I think, tied from 10 to 14 before. Now she's tied from 9 to 14. She's still at the bottom half.
That's right.
But given that she's one of the top spenders, I think her team should be able to see whether the message needs to be calibrated, because it doesn't generate as much increase relative to the November.
But the bottom half of, or the bottom 3/4 of those with a statistical chance to win, it's really quite crowded, right? I mean, Willie Revillame, Bato de la Rosa, Abby Binay, Manny Pacquiao, they're tied for 7th to 13th or 14th places. Camille and Lito Lapid, 9th to 10th or 9th or 10th up to the 14th. It's really too crowded and too early to tell, right? Which of these will end up in the Senate.
Yeah, and if you look at the voting support that they have, and the difference between one candidate and another candidate is less than a single percentage point. If we also consider the fact that, if the top ranked candidate in prior elections got about 53%, well, in 2025 I think it was less. You can imagine that the ones at the bottom, the ones who will be on the 11th, 12th, 13th to the 16th position, in prior elections, the range is about 28 to 32% of the votes. What we're getting right now is that, let's say, Lito Lapid is at 37, Kiko Pangilinan, who is close, not in contention, but is at around 29. You can expect that even these figures may decline. Again, it's a result of turnout, and I think it would definitely be affected by how they campaign, statements that they make, things that are able to resonate with the public, and the mistakes that they may commit that may result to a withdrawal of support.
Two of the administration candidates, Abalos and Tolentino, who's a re-electionist, are not in the 16 with the chance to, the 14 rather, the chance to win. If I were in their camps, would I point to their lower awareness rating as room for growth? Abalos has 85% awareness. Tolentino, despite being an incumbent senator, has only 87% awareness. Would it be...
Well, partly, but it's not too far from the 90s that are being shown by the other candidate. It may be largely a question of how their message has somehow mobilized public support, what their records are. Because in this case, they're competing with each other. No? They're actually not doing that badly. Maybe the level of awareness, because the awareness question that we have is quite simple, John, as you know. It's whether you've heard, read, or watched something in relation to this person. So beyond that superficial question on awareness, it's really how the depth of knowledge of individuals with regard to these candidates. How much do they know about Ben-Hur? How much do they know about what the advocacies of Francis Tolentino are and what he has done in his first term in the Senate? Those are things that may not have been communicated, and maybe that's the best thing that the candidates should be able to do right now.
But does the awareness rating represent name recall?
Yeah. Basically, it's a recall of their name. It's not necessarily a question of it will not in any way measure the extent of knowledge that they have about these individuals.
Yeah. So when people say, well, you need to have high name recall in order to win national office, I'm thinking it's a necessary condition but not sufficient, right? I mean, if you look at the top 16, I think except for Camille Villar with 93%, everyone is. Amy Marcos is 100% awareness. Bato de la Rosa 100% awareness. The others are 99%, 98%. I mean, so Kiko Pangilinan is also in the 90s. Bam Aquino is also in the 90s. So it's not just name recall. It's only the first step.
It's only the first step, and if you add certain elements there, if they were going to do their own studies, other elements that are quite important would be how trusted they are by the public. Because if people recall your name and then additionally you're trusted, that you have a large proportion of the public trusted, you can expect those who trust a specific candidate to maybe convert that trust to voting support. And trust is a function of more deeper, more extensive knowledge about what the individual has done. It may even be explained simply by the charisma that someone possesses, or what they have done in the past, the knowledge that people have in terms of what they have done, especially those who have not been in elected positions. Why is it that Ben Tulfo is doing well? Why is it that Erwin Tulfo is doing well? A friend of ours, Leller Claudio, has done a paper on Ben Tulfo, and basically that was in the past. He labels it, if I'm not mistaken, as sumbong politics. So in that sense, the brand that he carries is that he actually listens to people who have complaints, grievances, and he addresses those complaints. So he's a problem solver.
But the sumbong politics, I think that's a family tradition or a family brand for the Tulfos, starting with their oldest brother, Mon Tulfo, who didn't fare too well, I think, when he was thinking of running for the Senate before. So it's also, I guess, a question of time. People over the years just have come to repose their trust in the Tulfos. But this is very unusual.
Yeah, and it might be the platform also that Mon used as against, let's say, for example, Erwin and Ben.
That's right.
Who basically have been in broadcast compared to Mon, who was largely in print.
Yeah.
If you look at even the sources of information that we normally get in surveys, TV remains number one, the internet is second. You have about 8 out of 10 Filipinos in the internet. And when you go down to the print, that's only about 2% of Filipinos reading newspapers. So being in print media doesn't necessarily generate that much attention on the part of the public.
That's right. Can we talk about the prospects of Kiko Pangilinan and Bam Aquino? Right now, they are 15 or 16.
Well, it's still quite a long ways for them, and their figures are not that bad. They're close to the 30s. I think Kiko is 29 and Bam is at 27. What we know is that they've been campaigning as a tandem. The two of them, I think their advertisements are joint advertisements. They're working on issues that they've carried in the past. Whether those issues are being communicated in a way that there's an effective component of that particular messaging is something, again, that the campaign team should look at. Because one of the things that they should be able to do is to differentiate themselves from the other candidates, but at the same time be able to tackle the issues that matter to many Filipinos, whether these are economic or political issues. Although the material issues are more urgent, over the past few months, you have issues of abuse or wastage of resources that I think has to be given attention by candidates who are not necessarily in administration, and maybe they would benefit if they emphasize the accountability of those in administration right now, whether they're with the president or with the vice president.
I know that you had written this paper, looking for the party, because of coalition politics. But is it also possible to say that this is not the time for the Liberal Party? They may have reached their peak in 2013, but of course, BAM is no longer is not with the Liberal Party, but is identified with Kiko Pangilinan. Is it also would that be one of the factors to consider why they're doing all right given where they are right now, but still have a long way to go, especially considering it's a crowded race?
Well, John, a party in the Philippines only becomes strong when you do have a number of incumbent elected officials. But we know that, in the Philippines, there's a lot of turncoatism. So the decline of the Liberal is brought about by the shifting allegiances of people who used to belong to the Liberal Party. I think right now, if you look at the roster of candidates at the local and national level, many of them would affiliate with a party that we did not know anything about, but became the party of the incumbent president, Partido Federal. So in that sense, the party's membership has been decimated, and aside from the damaging remarks of the previous administration, you just have one candidate right now coming from the Liberal Party. So it's really a problem in the Philippines. It's the weakness of political parties. Unless they really organize themselves and link themselves with a social movement, those parties would really be just simply affected by what is referred to by some as a bandwagon effect, a tendency of politicians to gravitate towards the party or the alliance that is linked with the administration of the president.
Yeah, it certainly looks like a long road ahead for Kiko Pangilinan and the Liberals. You mentioned President Marcos. How much of a factor is presidential support? Has administration support for a senator candidate been quantified, like in terms of it's worth 1.5 million votes or something?
Well, we normally ask endorsement questions. If the president would endorse a senatorial candidate, will they surely vote? Probably vote. Cannot say whether they will vote or not vote, and surely not vote. And when you look at the figures, basically the ones who say, and we give emphasis to the surely vote and the surely not vote, they're almost the same. So what you'd find as a net will be about 1-2 points, which doesn't necessarily matter for senatorial candidates. The advantage of someone in administration is that you have the administration's resources. You get to be carried around. No? You don't have to even spend your money in the barnstorming that will be conducted by the team. And that's quite important, John, because if you look at what drives people to vote for national candidates that they're not so much familiar with, it would be when they see those candidates personally, and that's when they do the ground campaign, or what is referred to as the barnstorming. Now, if you're in administration, definitely they will have the resource to be able to bring their entire slate across the country in several areas, and you're a free rider there. But if you're doing it alone, you're an independent or someone in the opposition, then you have to generate the resources to be able to do the same ground campaign, and that's going to be quite difficult. I'm not saying that the ground campaign draws a significant proportion of voting support, but it does add up too, and this is important for senatorial candidate.
I do remember interviewing different mayors after the 2019 elections and being told that President Duterte had expressly told those mayors they have to bring in Bongo at third place. I think maybe President Duterte looked at the surveys and realized, they couldn't overtake Grace Poe and Cynthia Villar. So, in fact, Bongo did come in third in 2019. I'm not sure if President Marcos is involved at that kind of, level. But I think that was something. I mean, we should also take that into consideration.
It's something that happens. It may even go to the extent of effective junking on orders of, let's say, the chief executive. You see this in local elections, right?
That's right.
When a mayor, for example, says that I want the complete councilor slate in, what they normally do is that those who are hanging on to the last few positions, they strategize so that the person would be the only one that will be voted in certain barangays or certain communities. And they junk the other candidates who are actually getting so much support already. There might even be coercion, or there might be some inducement on the part of the chief executive, whether it's a national or the local. But that is if they're really concerned about that particular candidate. What you said a while ago is really something that would happen in 2019, given the closeness of then the special assistant to the president to the incumbent president then. But would Bongbong Marcos do that for any of the candidates, especially for those who appear to be not in contention right now? Benhur Abalos and Francis Tolentino, who spend much time. And then his endorsement is also something that will not be true in many areas. I doubt whether his endorsement power would be that strong. He would be that influential in certain places where the Dutertes are.
That's right.
More specifically, Mindanao. So maybe in the National Capital Region, but even then, NCR would, and the balance of Luzon in our survey has low fill-up rates. So let's see. We don't know what the president will do, whether Bongbong Marcos would now give attention to getting 2 more people in, because right now there are 10 among the 14 who are in the administration slate.
Dr. Holmes, maybe one last question, and this time about the party list. That's also included in your release of findings on February 10. You identified 5 party list groups as having a good chance of landing 3 seats. And I think 7, if I'm not mistaken, other party list groups with a chance to win 2 seats. And then several more with 1 seat each. I'd just like to ask, what makes for a winning party list group? Is it name recall? Is it party platform? I mean, some of these parties, very few people have heard of or know what they stand for.
The other day, was it yesterday or the other day anyway, I was listening to a group who had a webinar. This is the group of Democratic Insights. And they basically pointed out 2 things. One would be name recall for some of the parties, especially the ones who are getting 3 seats. It's essentially a market vote. But the other thing is a concentrated command vote. Because there are some political parties that actually focus on generating support only in some areas. You would expect that for the parties that are, for example, supposedly representing ethno-linguistic groups. They will get support from those areas that speak the same language. But many parties are also focused on the provinces or cities that have large voting populations. And these are negotiated votes. That means that they're actually working with local politicians. And maybe there's a quid pro quo there. If they will get into our seats, then these are the things that we would do. So the local politicians will determine how they would distribute their support, especially if the local politicians are running for seats that are uncontested. So that's the dynamics in terms of the party list. So the surveys may not capture the second one, negotiated votes, because the surveys would capture the popular vote. And in that sense, the ones who are getting 3 or 2 seats, some of them would definitely be drawn by popular votes. The others would be largely because of I would not even discount the labels, the titles that they have. Who would not vote for 4Ps, John?
Yes, or senior citizens.
Or senior citizens.
And
lucky for 4Ps, they're in the, if you look at the ballot, since we're using the ballot template right now, 4Ps is number 1 on the ballot.
That's right.
So in that sense, it's also the way that they configure the party so that the name itself will draw support, and that's the reason for their popularity.
This has been most instructive. Thank you very much, Dr. Ronald Holmes, Professor of
Thanks,
Political
John.
Science, and President of Pulse Asia. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome back. Now let's take a look at the latest Octa survey, which was conducted from January 25 to 31, and whose findings were released on February 11. We are joined by the president of Octa Research and Development, another well-known political scientist, Assistant Professor Ranjit Rye of the University of the Philippines. Welcome, Professor Rye, and thank you for joining us in the public square.
Oh, thank you for inviting us. We're always honored to present our data in any platform of Rappler. Thank you, John, for inviting us.
Let me start by asking you, so this is your second election that you've covered, if I'm not mistaken, the first midterms that you're polling. Any difference from 2022, your first presidential election?
Well, that's a great question. Reflecting on how we started in public opinion research. And yes, this is our second attempt at providing accurate information to the Filipino public as far as elections are concerned. Our hope that will do us good as we did in 2022. In 2022, we did very well. It wasn't really rocket science to predict that President Bongbong Marcos would win. But when we came out with our April 2022 surveys, they were not just accurate, but they were close to the real actual vote. Now, we came up 58.1. The actual vote was 58.7. We accurately depicted the surge of Lenny, which came in March, and then later on, a surge in our numbers in the final count. We made no mistakes in the list of senators, and we're very happy with that because that was the first attempt of a all-UP group, mostly our faculty members who are part of our Octa Research, to do this kind of work. And we're very proud of it, and we hope that we will be able to replicate this coming midterms.
Yeah, so you got the first 13 results right for the 12 seats in the Senate. But nobody did get Robin Padilla topping the elections. I think Padilla was
only
6th.
God knew that, sir. Only God knew that. It was unexpected.
What do you think happened there? I think in your last survey he was 6th. But then he wasn't again top in any of the other surveys. Was there a last-minute surge in support for him, or?
Yeah, this is largely second-hand information I got over the months and the years after. Is that one religious group did not support Raffy Tulfo, and the impact was significant. It also helped that Robin Padilla was strongly supported by the administration that time, and there was a very strong Muslim vote that came out. And so those are the factors that I think may have catapulted him to number one as far as the rankings are concerned.
All right.
Please at no time did Raffy Tulfo slide to number 2 in any of our surveys. It was only on election day that.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's why things can happen. Things will change, and that surveys are just a snapshot, really. But as far as Octa was concerned, we were able to predict the names up to 13. I don't know with the other survey companies if they were 100%, but we know, and we hope that in this round we'll be able to provide accurate information to our.
Let's talk about this round. So the latest survey came out on February 11. The results came out on February 11. You identified 16 candidates for the Senate with a statistical chance of winning a Senate seat, winning one of the 12 Senate seats. And all 12 of the administration candidates, the ones that Marcos is backing, are in your top 16. Is this surprising to you?
Actually, it's not. I think it's fair. Well, right now, it's a tight race. So most likely, you look at the maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's really tough. So that's the first thing. And not surprising that the administration candidates are doing better, because a lot of them are, returning senators, incumbent senators, with established brands and names. We don't know what they actually stand for in terms of platform and program, but they do have established names, no? And but what's surprising, I think, here in our own latest surveys, how the independents are doing, how those who are not part of the administration were struggling to get in. Some of them have gotten in and have gotten very, very big survey numbers this quarter. I think the big story in our survey is Willie Revillame. Think about it, plus 20 percentage points from the last survey. We haven't seen numbers like this, surges like this. And apparently, according to my students, he hasn't. There's no ads. There's no 1 billion spent on ads, and so you can expect that he's going to be an exceedingly competitive candidate, pushing down a lot of these established names. No? And you can see it in our survey. So a lot of the other names, it's already overtaken established political names, no? And families. So I think that's the big story. There's also some movement as far as some candidates. No, when you look at the top three, the top two, no, the Tulfos, they actually went down in this survey. No, nominally Erwin, significantly Ben. Bongo was also a big gainer, plus 6 percentage points. Tito Soto was lost 9 percentage points this quarter. So, which explains those. I think those are the big stories as far as our survey is concerned. Bato de la Rosa, his survey numbers trajectory seem to be going down as far as Octa is concerned, but he's still very competitive. In fact, gained. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, Camille Villar gained 7 percentage points. I think those are the big stories here, big numbers here. A lot of the candidates retain their ranks, more or less, but there's some, and this is what I think people should look into. It's really not the rank, but really the percentage voting for.
Okay.
That people should be looking at, and Amy Marcos actually gained some points nominally at this quarter, plus 3 percentage points. So it's in the margin of error. So she probably is. So this is the story of our survey. I think also important to note, former Senator Kiko Pangilinan and former Senator Bam Aquino are not doing so bad. They actually went up this particular quarter.
I'm going to get back to that point that you raised about maybe what we should do is to look at the percentage rather than the rankings. But I want to step back a bit and use your own word. You said of course surveys are snapshots. No, at a particular point in time. In this case, the last week of January 2025. This is how people said they were going to vote. My question is, and I also asked the same of my earlier guest, Dr. Ronnie Holmes. Is it accurate to say that the top half of the snapshot is clear? We know it's gonna, be in the first 4, 5 or so seats, but the bottom half, it's blurred. It's hard to make out exactly who's going to win. It's a crowded race in the bottom 6. Would it be accurate to say that?
Well, even talking about a sure win, I think it's for me as talking on behalf of my group. I think it's premature to say anything right now, given how the dynamics of it's at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely those above 40% are, have high probability of making it. So again, looking at percentages rather than ranks, no. Mm, and things are fluid and changing every week, no, every day.
Okay.
Today's what, the first day or second day
The
of
second day.
campaigning? Yeah, second day of campaigning, and we had while it wasn't taken up in the media so much, we actually had very dramatic starts, no, for the
Sure. Yeah.
administration. Get the president said a mouthful, uh, framing the whole campaign, no,
That's right.
us versus them proposition, pro Philippines versus pro China, pro human rights, anti human rights. It's already framed. It's a very powerful a way to look at how this campaign is going to unfold. It's going to be framed in a particular set of ideas, no? And they're hoping that Filipinos, everyday voters, will see the difference between these different groups, no, who are running. We have yet to wait for we have yet to see pala the start of the campaign for the Duterte group, which is emerging, no, at least looking at the survey, as the alternative, no, to the administration. Unfortunately, the people I like, members of the progressive bloc, no, they're not doing very well as far as our surveys are concerned.
That's
no?
right.
And I hope that they will do better, and hopefully over the campaign period, cover some ground. So right now, given that it's only the second day, John, I won't say anything except to say that there is historically, at least, it's only been here for 3 years. When you look at the other survey companies, the more established, well-known survey companies that do the survey the same as we do, it looks like, no, those over a certain percentage seem to, at the end of the race, get to the finish line, no? But then again, we saw the Rafi tool, for example. You can slide from 1 to 4 or 6. Really, if the junking happens, if we do well, do badly during the campaign. But the struggle is really in the last 6. So I'm gonna answer it the way you're also framing it. The last 6 is going to be, the last half of the ticket is going to be a dogfight, especially in this coming midterms. No, when you our own survey, the division between 6 to 12 is really just a few percentage points, 2, 3 at most. There's hardly any separation. So it's going to be intense, and given the nuances, for example, you have somebody like Camille Villar, no? They have the machinery, they have brand. They're going to surge. Numbers are going to surge soon, later, okay, as the campaign ensues. You also have Abby Binay, no? Who in survey may not be in the top 6, no, or the top half of our own list, but will likely, in our view, in my personal view, give it name recall, the machinery, and even the messaging that they're utilizing now, most likely will have a very good chance of getting into the top half of the PBT, the list.
So the snapshot that we're looking at is a little more blurred than we would like. There's a little more volatility. It's also possible, for instance, that if the surge that's driving Willie Revillame continues, we might have another Robin Padilla.
I honestly feel he's the Robin Padilla of this particular race.
Interesting.
And he's a big disrupt, no? Because all of the established names who we thought would be in the top half by this time have all moved down because of him, no? And the bar set by Mr. Revillame is kind of high. He's already this early 48%. That's huge. So it's like another Ben Tulfo, Erwin Tulfo in the making. So that's gonna have an impact. The disrupt as far as our list is concerned, which by the way has been fairly consistent, except for some movements with regards to Amy Marcos, Senator Pato de la Rosa, but they've always been, and we've always had a similar list over the last 3 quarters. You know.
Let's talk about Abalos and Tolentino. They are part of your 16 with statistical chance as of January. I think Abalos is 9 to 16 places or slots. Re-election in Tolentino is 10 to 16. I know we shouldn't compare apples to oranges. In other surveys, they are outside the winning circle. Is it possible? Can you walk us through what you think are the factors that put them within the winning circle in your own survey?
I really can't answer that. They're doing better in our survey, possibly than others. But we don't know if will. We're running another survey next month. We don't know if they're going to do the same situation. No? But when you look at the numbers of, let's say, Tolentino, Binay, Villar, and De La Rosa, only 1 percentage point. And you include Abalos, only 2 percentage points. So it's really nominal. It's almost the same. So why they're competitive, I wouldn't know in the case of Tolentino, except that possibly they're spending more on make people more aware of what they've done. Senator Tolentino has been one of the stalwarts, the legal stalwarts in the Senate. Secretary Abalos has been spending a lot. I mean, I can only see from my own point of view. When you look at the posters all around EDSA and all of this.
That's right. He's very present.
Abalos is so present, and apparently even in the provinces. So I don't know really. I can't really explain at this point because I haven't been given the long view yet.
Sure.
We're just really fighting the campaign. But Camille Villar and Abby Bina are doing very well also as far as ads and awareness. Camille Villar still has an awareness that's not as high as the others. No? She's low 90s as far as we're concerned. So we feel that there's still a lot of for Villar and Binay, more than let's say Tolentino.
So you do measure awareness?
Yes, we do. Of course, it's part of the. Although we don't include it in the press release.
May I know what's the awareness rating of Abalos and Tolentino?
Abalos and Tolentino are in the they're 100. So there are a lot of people. So the space for them to move forward is probably much less than, let's say, a Binay, which is around 94, 94, 95, and Villar about 92. So there's still room for people to get to know them and probably prefer them over the period of time we call our campaign.
Yeah.
We also have to take note that the candidates we're talking about are from the administration ticket.
That's right.
So get some boost from administration resources, from the network of support that supports the government. The midterms, as we all know, is a referendum on the president. So it is what it is. So, but the thing is, they're all from the same ticket, and they'll be competing against each other. We see that it's likely these are the 4 names that will be competing against each other.
Can you help us understand something? Something just occurred to me. I know we're talking, again, apples and oranges, but maybe you can help us understand why one is an apple and the other is an orange. Pulse Asia January survey, the awareness rating of Abalos is 85% and Tolentino is 87%. They're the only ones in the 80s in the first 20 or so. But in your case, they have 100% awareness rating. Of course, you have your own different methodologies, random sample sizes, and so on. But it seems to me like, wow, on the one hand, you have 100% aware of these two, and on the other hand, you're looking at 15% of people who have not even heard of these high officials. What can explain the difference?
Maybe it's the sampling, maybe the people we interviewed at that particular point. Yeah, but this is common in survey companies and their results. No? So it's possible that there are different period of time, different samples, different individuals. No, so that were interviewed during the course of the survey.
Okay.
So these are things that might be different from between us and some of the other survey companies.
All right, thank you. I want to get back to the point that you said about, maybe it's best to focus on the percentage share. So right now, Erwin Tulfo, one of the three Tulfo brothers, four Tulfo brothers, is doing quite well, right? Is he in the 60s, I think?
Erwin Tulfo in our surveys 70%.
70%.
From 73, down from 73 in our last quarter survey. Yeah.
All right. In 2022, in your first election survey, election coverage, you had at certain points Loren Legarda and Rafi Tulfo, the brother of Erwin, polling at 60 plus.
Yeah.
But they ended second and third at 63, 62%. I want to understand this. Is this a pattern? Most candidates get higher share of vote in election surveys, but get lower actual share of vote in the elections. Is that a thing?
Well, I don't know. We don't have data that goes back as far as Pulse and SWS is concerned. But what we do know is that the actual vote is supposed to be within the margin of error.
Yes.
And what we felt when we look at the data as far as the senatorial elections are concerned, except for one or two names, notably Rafi Tulfo, and then I think another one, it more or less looked like our survey. So I could be wrong if to look at the data. And even with the Ben Abalos and Tolentino, I'll be very specific. I don't think they're much higher awareness ratings. I would clarify. Higher awareness ratings than Binay and or Villar in particular. Binay and Villar. So that's what I want to emphasize, that these Binay and Villar will probably get as their awareness up more votes. That's the point I wanted to raise.
Yeah,
earlier.
they have more room for growth.
Not clear about 100%. Yeah, now I'm just going to clarify lang.
Yeah.
But what I do know from my recollection, the exact ones I don't have now, is that Abalos and Tolentino have a higher awareness rating than Binay and Villar. That's at least what the team told me. So I don't have the data at the moment with me. But what I want to emphasize there is that there's space and room for strong candidates with machinery, with name, with low awareness. My sense is that as the campaign ensues, on the ongoing campaign rolls out, these names, Binay and Villar, will go up. That's my own reading.
All right.
The data, of course, doesn't show that now. But I feel, based on my experience as a student of politics, that these are very competitive names and that they will do better than what they're showing now in these pre-campaign surveys.
Yes. Camille's mother was the first to break 25 million votes for the Senate.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not, and she has a brother, and her father was also in the Senate. So, but I had a question.
Also when you look at the broad picture, she's not doing as well as the other Villars at this point.
At this point, yes.
So we also have some recollection of their numbers, and she should be doing better by now. But because people are not aware presently of who she is, what she stands for, and what she brings into the for both voters. That's why she is where she is right now. So that's just my sense.
Okay.
So that's the nuance of what you're saying, that hindi automatic na Villar mataas.
Yeah.
Mukhang ito ang test case nila, that they should have built a name much earlier. That's what they're trying to do now.
That's right.
Make people more aware in a short period of time who she is, her brand of politics, which is the Villar politics, no? Whatever that means. And I hope that people will convert as voters for her.
Just a couple more questions, Professor Rye. I prepared a question here. Is Bato de la Rosa struggling? But earlier you said that he actually he's not doing too bad. So my question now is, what differentiates Bongo, who seems to be doing very well, from Bato de la Rosa, who might be the target of, junking efforts in the end?
I don't know, this is a quandary for us, because he used to be very high. He used to be in the top 5, top 6, and then slowly started to slip. No, and it happened at a particular period, no, third quarter last year.
Okay,
when in the face of the Duterte struggle with the administration, and so that this may, I'm not saying it's the causal factor, no, but it may be one of those factors that have led to his decrease, no. But he's now improving. It's now stabilizing. We do expect that it will go up in the next survey, because he's also started his campaign, and I've seen personally his own campaign jingle and all of this. So it's let's see how all of this when all of this falls into place, the actual campaign, how these numbers will change, and we expect them to change drastically. So I won't be worried about incumbent Senator Bato del Rosa. So I think he'll do better. And please take note, when it comes to 9 to 12, as far as our survey is concerned, it's only, the difference is only between 3 to 4 points. For most, it's about 1 to 2 points. But when you look at Lito Lapid and Bato de la Rosa, it's just 3-4 points. So the difference between 9, 10, 11, 12 is very slight, and so we expect these things to change. We also expect that people will be looking at issues, learning more about their candidates. So we're hoping that that voters will use the survey as a tool, but will not make it a basis for their vote. So that's what we've been saying since 2022. Surveys should not be a basis for anyone's vote, and but it's important, because surveys as a tool for data gathering, as a statistical method, it helps us understand who we are, how we think of a range of issues as a people, what we privilege, our preferences, and so surveys are useful in that sense. And whether you look at the track record in 2022, as we see today, surveys have been relatively right as far as the Philippine experience is concerned, as far as elections are concerned. Of course, not all survey companies are the same.
That's right.
But by and large, the established survey companies have had a very good track record.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that Octa, who has had a very good track record in 2020, will continue to do the same in 2025.
But that's precisely the paradox of surveys, right? I mean, that's also why I believe in surveys. Done scientifically, done right, the reason they are accurate is because they don't influence people. If they influence people, then you would have skewed results, right? Yeah. Professor Ranjit,
this is a big issue, John. This is a big issue. People believe in mind conditioning and all of these things. But our studies, at least internally, show that.
I think it will condition the minds of donors. You're looking at a different audience here.
Donors.
Yeah. You're looking at a different audience here, and in that sense, they do change minds. Last question. You mentioned that Bato de la Rosa struggle, or momentary struggle, you can pinpoint the time, which is the third quarter. No? So this was when Vice President Duterte was getting criticized and so on. My question is, are you going to ask in succeeding surveys a question directly related to impeachment, or maybe ask a proxy question that will help you gauge public opinion, public sentiment regarding the impeachment of VP Sara?
We are. We're going to. I think, in fact, we may have already. I have to just ask Professor David, no, our data scientist who's in charge of this. But we have not released any results thus far, no, as far as concerned. Number two, we do have proxies, and we've been running probes where we look at political preference. These are, short period studies we're conducting, to try to classify voters. And three things that seem to come out is, number one, majority of Filipinos, not majority, but a big segment, over 30% of Filipinos identify themselves as pro-administration. We'll come up with the new data, no? It's still being processed. Number two, there is something like 20%, between 15 to 20%, who identify themselves as pro-Duterte. And majority of Filipinos are either independents or undecided how they would classify themselves. So there's a big market for votes. And so when we look at when we do these surveys specifically, we may actually look at who among the supporters, or we can look at who among the supporters are identify themselves as pro Duterte or pro Marcos or pro administration. So we can find out, no. But it's important to note that most Filipinos are independent. A little close to 40%, a little over 40% are independent, meaning they don't classify, or they disregard the classifications we provided them. And this is changing over time, and interesting to see now, because of the dynamics we see today, that we have two rival families now who were once part of the unity team, battling it out in the midterms. Each has already established a narrative, and let's see how this will play out among our kababayans.
This has been very clarifying. Professor Ranjit Rye, President of Octa Research and Development, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Still many numbers to crunch to better understand what the electorate is thinking. But that's it for us today. The next step for engaged citizens is to identify and vote for candidates worthy of their vote. In the meantime, keep up to date with election news. Download the Rappler Communities app and join the chat room of your choice. Thank you. This is John Nery. See you in the public square.